Good morning. Good morning and welcome everyone. I'm Marcel Acosta, Executive Director of the National Capital Planning Commission, one of the Beyond Granite partners. It is fitting for today's event to be in Washington, D.C.'s newly renovated Martin Luther King Jr. Library. This beautiful library captures the spirit of Beyond Granite as a living memorial, one of the first public buildings dedicated to Dr. King. We're thrilled to have so many people attending today, both locally and across through the live stream, bringing unique experiences and perspectives. We often describe Washington, D.C. as a place where our memorials, museums, public spaces, events, and civic buildings all tell powerful stories. The nation's capital offers spaces and places with significant meaning for our country. People want to tell their stories here and come to our nation's capital to connect to these stories. Beyond Granite envisions a more inclusive future for how we tell our collective stories in our capital city, the people, events, and experiences that shape us as a nation. Today's program continues this conversation and opportunity to shape national commemoration. NCPC has explored these issues for over a decade, investigating ideas for temporary, ephemeral memorials and monuments and ways to achieve more diversity and representation in our commemorative landscape. In fact, 12 years ago, on December 8th, 2010, NCPC and the Trust for the National Mall convened our first public conversation across the street at the Smithsonian American Art Museum to envision what Beyond Granite might look like. And we're thrilled to be back alongside the Trust for this initiative. And we want to recognize the Mellon Foundation for its generosity and appreciate its support for making Beyond Granite a reality. Many thanks to our colleagues at the National Park Service for welcoming and embracing this exhibition. We also created with the Parks 2016 Memorials for the Future Ideas competition, which helped us reimagine how we think about, feel, and experience memorials. We are so excited to work with the Trust for the National Mall and the National Park Service on Beyond Granite because of their dedication to fulfilling the National Mall's civic promise as a model of inclusiveness. Again, thank you for being with us in person and virtually. We hope you'll stay in touch over the next year as Beyond Granite comes to reality. Finally, we are greatly honored to have Monument Lab serving as curators for Beyond Granite's inaugural exhibition. We're very excited about that. And with that, I'd like to introduce our co-curators, Paul Farber and Salamisha Tillett. Welcome.
Well, good morning. It's beautiful to be here with all of you present here at the DC Public Library and those who are watching and joining from afar. I'm Paul Farber. I'm Director of Monument Lab.
And I'm Salamisha Tillett, and I'm the co-curator of Pulling Together.
Yeah, so we're here to help share right here, letting it be known that the inaugural exhibition of the Beyond Granite Initiative is pulling together. And today you'll hear about the curatorial concept, the prompt, and you'll get a chance to meet 6 remarkable artists who have been on a process to build prototype monuments for an exhibition next year on and around the National Mall. Before we begin, we want to start with gratitude. Of course, to our host, the Trust for the National Mall, who have been pulling together a big coalition to make this day and the days forward possible. Also to the key partners, the National Capital Planning Commission, the National Park Services, National Mall Memorial Parks, and of course the Mellon Foundation as well. Thank you to all of you for being here, and also just want to acknowledge those who can't be with us, the ancestors, those who we've lost, whose legacies following to even be able at this point to think and dream.
Thank you, Paul. And I'm honored to be here as well in such beautiful company, and we're excited to introduce our artist to you. But before we begin, we just wanted to give you a sense of the inspiration behind Pulling Together. So if we go to the next slide, Pulling Together is inspired by the 1939 performance on Easter Sunday by Marian Anderson on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. She was there because she was barred from the nearby Constitution Hall due to segregation. And in this performance, and it remains monumental, as you know, in our public imagination, our public memory, educator and civil rights activist Mary McLeod Bethune was one of the many thousands present. And she remarked at the time that the performance told a story of hope for tomorrow, a story of triumph, and a story of pulling together, a story of splendor and real democracy. And so this idea of pulling together, that art can be this place or a performance or a moment in time, can be an opportunity for us to see ourselves, to enact democracy, and also to create a new community of fans and audience members. It's very inspiring to this project, and hopefully you'll see over time how we try to enact this very vision that Mary McLeod Bethune had on that day.
Yeah, and Monument Lab, we're a nonprofit, a public art and history studio, and we work with artists, educators, municipal agencies around the past, present, and future of monuments. And we started as a classroom project, and over the years, with a team that is based in Philadelphia, as well as other parts of the United States, we've been working and in dialogue and conversation to really think about how we prototype the next generation of monuments. And we deal with the monuments that we've inherited. And, for this project, we had this opportunity, thanks to the Trust for the National Mall, we called up a time colleague, curator, friend, Salamisha Tillett. And we're very lucky because right after we asked Salamisha to join us, she was awarded the 2002 Pulitzer Prize for criticism for her work in the New York Times. Salamisha and I have been going to the mall together for over a decade. We've been talking about ideas of democracy and public space for just as long, and it's just such a treat and honor to be able to work with you, the team at Monument Lab, and all of the lead partners and all those who will join us. So to get started, for us, art is at the core. So we wanted to think in this experimental exhibition, the first of its kind, how we follow in the footsteps of artists and activists who've made an imprint on the national mall. Thanks for being with us.
Because is this mic or this mic? Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Pulling together. And art is at the core. So we wanted to say, how could we invite a group of artists to prototype monuments? There is not one answer to the monument question. We need multiplicity.
Okay, so we're using our mics, right?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Beautiful. We wanted to have a group of artists who would be able to ask questions, curiosity, their experience, their vision, and help unpack what's possible, what's present, what's absent, and what stories are there on National Mall. So like with Monument Lab projects, we like to ask a question that doesn't have one answer, it has a multitude of possibilities. So the question that we asked our artists and we'll be thinking about with members of the public as well is, what stories remain untold on the National Mall? And look, we know that actually no story is technically untold. Some stories have been resourced or spotlighted or elevated in other ways. This is meant as a prompt to help open up conversation. What does it mean to tell a story, to be present, be an imprint? For the art group, we were looking for artists who engage democracy and public memory in powerful ways. We were looking for artists who push participation and think about how monuments are a part of engaging and conversation. And we wanted artists who treat monuments in a multiplicity of ways, from big and small, from sculpture to sound, and could help us all think about in this coalitional way. Before we introduce the artists, and we'll hold this slide just for a moment, we are thankfully joined by a group of colleagues, a curatorial advisory board, who are helping us have feedback and really bring each of the artists' visions to life. So some of those folks are present here with us today, some are online. They represent a number of local and federal institutions, thought leaders, and we're really grateful for the curatorial advisory board. Hold for a moment, let's hit this. Without further ado, let's announce the artists for Pulling Together.
Yes, I feel like I'm at the Oscars, but not. And the Oscar goes to, okay. So no, honestly, it's just such a delight, and I'm just so moved and blown away by all of introduce who's on their way, and the word is play. So Derek Adams is an artist whose work spans painting, collage, sculpture, performance, video, sound, and the public realm. Adams probes how identity and personal narrative intersect with American iconography, art history, urban culture, and the Black experience. Adams' works resides in the permanent collections of the Met, the Studio Museum in Harlem, and the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, among many others, and has been featured in public spaces, most recently at the Rockefeller Plaza.
Let's give some love to Derek Adams. You know, grace is very important, and Derek is on his way from Baltimore, his hometown, so he's gonna hopefully be joining us and slide in just a few moments.
You can see him, since he's not here today right now, if you read the New York Times article, there's a wonderful quote about this project with him in it.
Next up, and the word that comes to our mind is diaspora. The next artist is Tiffany Chung. She's globally renowned for cartographic drawings and embroideries, painting, sculptures, photographs, and videos that examine conflict, geopolitical division, spatial transformation, environmental crisis, and forced migration in relation to history and cultural memory. In 2019, she presented a solo exhibition at the Smithsonian American Art Museum and has been featured in museums and biennials, including the 56th Venice Biennale, the Museum of Modern Art, and at the Nobel Peace Center. Please join in giving love to Tiffany Chung.
Memory. So I have the distinct honor to introduce Sean Crawley, who I've known since first year of college at the University of Pennsylvania, and I've had the honor and blessing to see his work transform the world that we live in academia, but also now soon to be transforming the National Mall. So Sean Crawley is a writer, an artist, and a teacher who explores the intersections of performance, Blackness, queerness, and spirituality. He moves in and out of multiple genres in order to sound out a critique of the normative world, to sound out the possibility for alternatives or otherwise. His audiovisual art has been featured at Second Street Gallery, British Project, and the California African American Museum. And on the side, he is a tenured professor, associate professor of religious studies and African American studies at the University of Virginia. Give it up.
The next word, thank you for bearing with us, folks, on the sound. Maybe our friends up there, they're going to get it. Hello? Sometimes you just catch a lucky applause, right place, right time. Yeah, let's do it. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. What's up? Okay. Sean Crawley is a writer, artist, and teacher who explores the intersections of performance, Blackness, queerness, and spirituality. He moves in and out of multiple genres in order to sound out a critique of the normative world, to sound out the possibility for alternatives, for the otherwise. His audiovisual art has been featured at the Second Street Gallery, Bridge Projects, and the California African American Museum in Los Angeles, California. He's also an associate professor of religious studies and African American and African studies at the University of Virginia. Thank you.
The next word is collectivity. Thrilled to introduce Vanessa German, a Black queer artist making sculpture, communal ritual, love joints, immersive installation, and performance that takes up space in the healing realms of intimacy, tenderness, social healing, and human wholeness as original, enduring human technologies. German was awarded the Heinz Award for the Arts, the Don Tyson Prize, and was a recipient of the United States Artist Grant, among many other honors. Her work is held in permanent collections at Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, Museum of Contemporary Art Chicago, and the Carnegie Museum of Art. Join us in giving a proper welcome to Vanessa German.
The word and the spirit is reciprocity. Paul Ramirez Zonas is a practicing artist and educator with particular focus on interdisciplinary and socially engaged art, media, public art, and sculpture. His selected solo exhibitions have been featured at the Contemporary Art Museum, Houston, Museo Humex, and the New Museum. His civic projects key to the city and public trust are standard bearers in the field of public art. He, on the side, is also a professor of art, a professor and the art department chair at the College of Architecture, Art, and Planning at Cornell University.
And finally, the word is legacy. Wendy Redstar is an avid researcher of archives and historical narratives. To incorporate and recast her research, offering new and unexpected perspectives in work that is at once inquisitive, witty, and unsettling. Redstar was raised on the Upsalaga Reservation in Montana, and her work is informed by both her cultural heritage and her engagement with many forms of creative expression, including photography, sculpture, video, fiber arts, performance, and work in the public realm. Her work resides in the permanent collections of the British Museum and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Please give it up for Wendy Redstar. In a moment, we're going to welcome all of the artists up to have a conversation. Hopefully our sound will cooperate so you can vibe with us. But before we do that, I want to just give appreciation to this group of artists. Yeah. Affirmation is one of our words here. This is a group of artists who, for the course of their careers, have been asking questions about democracy and belonging. They see art not as something that's outside or extra or just adornment. It is the way that we knit together our democracy. These are artists who've also jumped into an experimental project and process, one that is a collaboration and a coalition of artists, of agencies, of thinkers and doers. And so as we're in this moment, the artists have been cooking up their ideas. Today is a day that we really appreciate the roster of artists who will be joined by others when we announce a programming calendar and lots of other collaborators. But we really want to make sure that we give love to this group of artists because it's a way to give love to artists everywhere. Artists at the core of what is possible. We're not going to be talking about their projects today because that's coming next year. You got to come back for that. But for now, let's appreciate the remarkable moment of being in the presence of the artists from Pulling Together. Please join us in welcoming up here to the stage the Pulling Together artists.
Okay. Hello, hello. Okay, great. We will begin our conversation. I'm really excited to be again in your company and just to talk because we haven't had all of you. I know Derek's on his way. All of you together in the same space yet. So this is really exciting. So my first question really is, what excites you about this moment, and why did you say yes? Do you want to start? I'll give you back. Whoever wants to go first, but we could start there.
What excites us about
About this moment, and why did you say yes to this experimental project that we're doing?
Well, I really love I love to work in public space because it's complicated. It's not neutral, and it forces you right away to deal with reality and to deal with different stakeholders because public space is so complicated. So how could I say no? This is probably one of the most complicated public spaces in the country, and it will force me to intersect with so many different people, and that's actually what I really enjoy. So I absolutely had to say yes.
What excites me about the momentum that I said? So what excites me about any living moment is the opportunity to be fully alive and awake and responsive to the complexity of what it is to be a human being, to be Black, to be queer, to be here, to be now. But I also am always really actively pushing my understanding and pushing love as a material that I work with. And so working materially with love, with creative understanding, redemptive, transformative, active loving in the living realm is the work of my life. It is the art of my life. It is why I am alive. And so to consider monument making and public memory for me through the active engine of loving is the greatest challenge of my existence. So it's really profoundly humbling to be here because I'm also someone that, in my history, people were like, that's a place you'll never be. Like as a self-taught artist, people were like, here are some shoe boxes. These little shoe boxes are where you will be. You will not be in this space. And so to be in this space and to activate as one of the primary materials of my work, love, is it's tremendously humbling, but it is like a profound and expansive gift. So of course I'm going to say yes.
It's a joy to be here in DC with everyone, and it's a joy to be a part of this moment. One, because we met at a dog park in Asheville this summer randomly because I was in Asheville walking my dog, and we recognized each other when we came together, when we were pulled together in October based on our dogs. And it felt very serendipitous to be here working together because I think a lot about and with love as well as a material force that compels our capacity to do justice with one another. And I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. I teach at UVA, and it's a place that is constantly trying to reckon with its past and how that past constantly makes itself present in things like monuments. And so the concept of monumentality is something that I'm thinking about actively just because of the consequence of where I work, the place that gives me a paycheck, and the complexity of receiving a pay from a place that has this kind of history that is not just only Charlottesville. Everybody has this history. We share in it. And so thinking about monumentality has been something that I've been thinking about since I moved there in 2017, a couple of weeks before the white supremacist rally on the campus. And so wanting to think about what it means to build things, to make things, to commemorate, to remember, to memorialize, to think about forgotten histories or erased histories. It just feels so exciting and also difficult to try to honor these various intensities of practicing memory in public space. And so I said yes because it felt like such a good opportunity to think about some of the things that I've been conceptualizing and writing about in a much larger scale. So.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us here. And for many people, the National Mall, is a sacred place where people can come maybe to get a glimpse of history of the U.S. So for many immigrants, for many migrants, many refugees, to be able to sit here and say, we're going to do this monumental project on the National Mall is an honor. It's something that you cannot say no, and also is a responsibility. Thank you.
It's just amazing to be here with all of you, to be in the presence and working with such amazing artists. I'm so excited and inspired by all of you, and thank you for making this happen. It's really incredible. So yeah, I was like, yes, right away. I did play a little cool, but I was like, totally, yes. But yesterday I had this amazing walk around the mall, site visit, and then ran into a teepee. And I just felt like right away seen. And I marched right up to the teepee, and there were two Native people in there, a father and daughter from the Omaha Nation. We just had our little jokes, and it was really beautiful. And so I was just thinking about that, like how that made me feel really good. It made me feel seen. And so I'm just excited to do that as well for anybody who's walking and happens to see an Indigenous presence and it's missing. So it was just really amazing to see that. So that gave me a little glimpse of how powerful this project's going to be. So thank you.
Okay. Sorry I'm late, everyone. Yeah. Well, first, I'm very excited to be here, and I'm honored to be aligned with these amazing cohorts for the project and curatorial vision. What excites me about this project and just all of the different components to building towards the opening or the reception is the opportunity to connect with audiences in a way that, as an artist who works in the studio, cannot always do. Because normally in the studio, it's really, I believe, it starts first from yourself and focusing on yourself, and it's more therapeutic when you're in your studio. And this is an opportunity to engage with audiences in a way that will really stretch your practice in a way that you cannot do it when you're working in isolation in your studio. And just the challenges involved in working collectively, because I feel like it's a collaboration at this point, will strengthen ideas around what art could be and how art should operate in our community, especially public spaces. And so being from Baltimore and being in such close proximity to DC my whole life growing up, it's an honor to be able to add to the conversation surrounding monumentality, you know, because Baltimore was considered Monument City at one point before the fire, because it has the most monuments in the United States. And I believe that that history is embedded in the core of my creative practice, and I'm excited to tap into that.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And just a note now, Derek has been able to join us. All the artists are here. This unlocks a whole another level because everyone is here. Something powerful opens up, a portal. And just appreciating this moment to be here together. Just to pick up on something that you brought up, this idea of monument. It's a big concept. It means in our minds bronze and marble and granite symbols. But of course, it also means projection, poetry, protest, the ways that people make their mark. There isn't one definition of monument. Monument Lab has defined monument as a statement of power and presence in public. I'm curious for each of you, how do you define monument, or how do you think about monuments from your perspective and your work?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't become an artist originally because I was interested in my individual voice and speaking about myself or autobiography, but I was really interested in how art could speak collectively. So, and I was always very interested in history, my own history, my family's history, history of countries, histories of the world. And so you can see how those two things come together into monuments. I always think of monuments are a small subset of art. It's like, it's a kind of art you put in public, and it is trying to articulate a collective history. And I think it's a really old tradition. I once counted, I think there's only really like 12 monumental forms, and they're all millennial. So I thought, well, it's really time to take up this challenge. All of us as artists, it's like, can we really do better than this baker's dozen? You know, and why is it that we can't come up with new ones? So I'm really interested. For decades now, I've really been interested in that challenge of like, how do you invent this new form that's really fitting for who we are today? Which one? Left or right?
I grew up in LA in the 80s and 90s, and I'm trying to think back to the first public monuments that were a part of my life, and I can't think of any. I remember I went to school in South Central, and I remember going to the Watts Towers. And I remember the story of this man, you know, building the towers. But really, for me, there was this like forcefully powerful place about the momentum from his heart, that he had to do this thing, that he had to gather these materials. Nobody told him to create this, except there was this uprising from his soul that created these monumental structures in Watts, where we were never supposed to go when we were kids. And so this is my first experience with like monumental structure in public space. But what I'm really interested in now is the living monument. I'm interested in the monument of the human heart. I'm interested in the places where we can gather around, form around, to be ourselves, to activate our human wholeness. So I'm really thinking about monumental spaces and public memory for the living, active, and also for the neediness. Like, as human beings, what are the spaces that we need? And especially when we need each other so much, you know? So this is where I am with it, but I really cannot think back in my mind to anything that, you know, growing up in the hood in LA, that was, except for the structures that we made a lot of times. Yeah, our stuff.
Okay. For me, you know, again, growing up in Baltimore, where there's plenty of monuments, all around the city that have very significant meaning, but not necessarily being taught about the history of most of the things that are in the city. But as an artist, again, most of my practice has really been about focusing on self-reflection and community-related things that are starting mostly from within the community in which I grew up. And this is an opportunity to really just really challenge myself in a way, because I've always looked at monuments as being problematic, regardless of who the monuments were, because I always felt that there are things to admire for that are purchased, things may or may not necessarily be significant to the people who are surrounding the structure. So I'm really interested in the idea of pushing back on those ideas of monumentality and thinking about how people can be engaged in the definition of a monument and how they can be a part of the contextualization of a monument and how a monument can exist in a way that we have never really thought about monumentality within a sculpture or within an object occupying a space. And what about a monument you could touch, that you could play with, that you could build on? What are those things? The things that are not precious, but if they're for the people, then I think that people should be able to touch them and have them and be a part of them. And I think a monument could change, and I think we're part of that change.
I think for me, the definition of monument that I'm sort of working with is a public reckoning with and over and wrestling with and over memory. That a monument for me doesn't have to be a thing that is constructed with wood or metal or screen or glass. That monument can be song. That monument can be the ephemera that also allows us to the capacity to contend with and against memory and the form that memory takes and the making of memory. Memory has to be made in the same way that you have to like make a painting or make a drawing. And so for me, the monument that I'm thinking about is the way that I'm conceptualizing monumentality is a public reckoning with memory in such a way that it actually also interrogates the distinction between the public and the private, because often what is erased from public memory is because of private shame, because of private violence that is never allowed to be made public. And so trying to think about the relationship between the public and the private through reckoning over memory, reckoning with memories that have been remembered and memories that have been forgotten is the way that I think, and I'm hoping to work through my own concept of monumentality.
Having lived in post-war Vietnam, I've learned to just ignore monuments, right? I mean, many monuments were erected all around in the new Vietnam to commemorate, the dead soldiers on the winning side. And of course, to commemorate the revolution of how we won the war. But my question has always been, what about the 2 million civilian deaths from both sides that was not commemorated? And what about the living that continue to struggle, the war consequences and the aftermath that was not commemorated? So that, to me, that's how I learned about monuments, something to do that got nothing to do with me, nothing to do with ordinary citizens. And then, when we came to the US, it's moving to see the Vietnam Veteran Memorial. But at the same time, we wish that it could include the names of the fallen soldiers of the US allies, the Southern Vietnamese. So that's why, I'm interested in microhistories. That's what I'm just trying to remap and trying to change the narrative in my work.
Oh, everybody's so smart here. Again, thinking about yesterday and the sort of the proposal that I submitted, and I'm thinking about doing something in Constitution Gardens, and the thing that I've conjured up was like, oh, I can see how people might find that political. And I guess what I would like to get to a place where the work that I'm making, or the artists here, the work that we're making isn't seen as activism or political, but like the Washington Monument and Lincoln Memorial is political. Do you know what I'm saying? I kind of want to flip the script, because all of those don't represent a full story. It's just this one narrative. So that's what I was thinking. It'd be great for people not to think what I'm making is political, that they would realize that it's just a fact and it's true. And if that is political to you, then I think, that's the work that we need to do.
I love that. I love that.
It's actually such a natural lead to the final question that we have for you all. And so it's kind of like, you're imagining, I know we're at the beginning of the process, but you're imagining this process of us working together, all of us working together to make this exhibition possible and inviting. And as a representative of America, as America is as diverse as it is. But I wonder, what is it that you hope that you get from this process? And what is it that you want the people who see your work to take away? And you've kind of mentioned this, so I think we'll start with you, Tiffany, and then we'll end with Wendy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to remember that memories and histories should be heard, should be told from multiple perspectives. I remember when I wanted to unpack the war in Vietnam, I spoke to my father, who's a former South Vietnamese helicopter pilot and a POW. And he reminded me that, the Vietnamese civilians bore the brunt of this war more than anyone else, more than any soldiers. And another thing he also mentioned was, in multiple occasions, like he talked about, the cruelty that he has to endure during the years of being in prison. But he also talked about how some of the prison guards treated him humanely. As that he wishes he could see them again. But now he lives here. There's no way that he knows where they are. But to me, that is the kind of monuments that I want to create, that I want to embody, because it's not about the memories of your own, but the memories of others, for better or for worse.
Thank you. I hope that this is going to sound a little bit abstract because I can't tell you what I'm doing yet, but I'm hoping that I get my breath back. I'm a Black queer child who grew up in a Pentecostal household. My first book is about Pentecostalism. My second book's about Pentecostalism and queerness, and doing some writing now, fiction, that's about that as well. And I have figured out through conversations with friends that I've probably been holding my breath in a kind of way for a very long time. And I'm hoping that this will be an opportunity literally for me to breathe again, and for the project is to honor others, and that hopefully for them too, that they will be able to breathe. And so I'm hoping that that what I get from it is a way to be in a kind of breathy relation with those who are here and those who are departed.
That's beautiful. Thank you. What do I hope? I hope that we're better to each other as human beings. And I hope that that which I create, we create through this time together is, and specifically to the work that I'm creating, I hope that it is a space of reckoning, and reckoning from the inside out, you know, reckoning from the heart, and a place of imagining. I hope that we talk about public memory, but there's also the making of future, the making of place. And so that there is a way to that human beings that engage in the work that I create are able to enter through their heart into a reckoning that is painful and difficult, but then rise through to their imagination to imagine a world, to imagine a place, and to activate that imagining through their heart on a daily basis in the White House, in the library, everywhere. So that's what I'm hoping for. It's like total world transformation.
Same. I think imagination is the key word. I mean, I know what I want. I don't know that it will be achieved, but the attempt is that I grew up in a place where history happens to you, where if two countries far away are in a Cold War, you're going to feel it at home. So you feel like you're part of history. You're in history. History is happening to you. So you are always hyper aware of history, of histories, right? And then the dream is to escape, you know, to be out of history. But then when you're out of history, you're disengaged. Nothing matters, right? You have no consequence. You have no community. You don't belong. So for me, the dream is to be able to create a situation where both that intimacy that you feel of your own history and the collective history kind of somehow merge, right? So you have a stake in the history, but it also, you have agency in the history. And imagination, I think, is the way you do it. And good luck to us all.
I'm excited for the possibility of facilitating a conversation of learning history through the execution of this installation. I'm interested in really thinking about how people engage with each other and how learning becomes part of growth for us as humans. And the site itself, because of its historical relevance, really is kind of meeting us halfway already. And so what I think we're going to do is create a space that will only amplify the purpose of the mall in a way that has never been amplified before, or at least challenged before. And I think that where we are and what we've been tasked to do, and I'm excited to be a part of it, is really think about the future and the concepts around this type of engagement, of inserting our ideas onto a space and to bring conversations for people who cannot speak for themselves at the forefront, and also really talk about what Americanism is, because I think that this project is really more about talking about the diversity within the country and all of the voices that help to build what we see and how we believe in what we believe in. And so I'm excited for just the challenge of it all, because I think the challenge part is really exciting for me. And it's definitely a vulnerable space to be in. And I'm happy to step into it.
Oh, Wendy.
No, that's okay. um, I guess I'm excited for the opportunity to really learn. I'm like very excited about that, and I think just the bit of like getting into the idea of what I want to do, I've already sort of had a better understanding of like the Declaration of Independence that I've never had before. And so I think that's what's powerful, is that it's an opportunity to ground yourself within the history and feel that you are part of the history. Um, and and so that's sort of what I'm hoping, that I can ground myself here in DC, so far away from where I'm from, but also the work do that for others as well.
Thank you.
Thank you to the Pulling Together artists. Again, just to be here together is no small feat. That's beyond logistics and pragmatics. That's a matter of survival, of finding a way through. Thank you to everyone here, especially to the Trust for the National Mall, the National Capital Planning Commission, and of course, our friends of the National Park Service. This is the beginning. So you hear this word learning, experimentation, possibility, imagination. That's what we're looking forward to. We'll learn together, and art and history move us forward. We're going to have a few more remarks before this launch preview event for pulling together this first exhibition of Beyond Granite. And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce a dear colleague and friend, the superintendent of the National Mall and Memorial Parks, Jeff Reinbold. I can switch him. I'm here through Friday. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Thanks to all of you. To our partners, we're actually doing this, right? This is pretty exciting. I do want to thank everyone for joining us, whether it's here in person or online. A special acknowledgement to our partners and the funders who make this work possible, enable these inspiring artists and thought leaders to be with us this morning. In 2003, Congress declared the built architecture of the National Mall as a substantially completed work of civic art, and that does not allow the installation of new permanent memorials. They established the reserve, a protected space that recognizes that while the construction of permanent commemorative work should be complete, the mall's story is not. It is yet unfolding. And it is this precious open space of the mall that the fuller telling of our nation's past, and equally important, our future, will occur. It is in this space where a nation will continue to come together to celebrate, remember, and inspire. And above all, where our freedoms and our truths will be made real and tested and renewed every day. The existing memorial landscape has tremendous value for collective history and culture, experience of many visitors who come from across the country and around the world. But Beyond Granite will give it greater depth and relevancy and deliberately challenge the paradigm of memorialization as permanent, immutable, and unchanging. As our most symbolically significant monumental space, our nation's story will be most powerfully told through our use of these open spaces for experience, for assembly, for exploration, and for possibility. And as an artwork installation, Beyond Granite will present ideas
on the mall and on the other open spaces around the mall that push forward our collective notions of who we are and who we want to be. Temporary artworks can do what permanent memorials cannot. They can adapt and evolve. They can expand and respond to current events. They can engage the public directly as part of the experience. They can be of a moment, not just of a time. And most importantly, they can be an invitation to the public to join in the storytelling, in the making of memory, and in the creation of shared national experiences. As we look towards 2026 and the 250th anniversary of declaring independence, we are profoundly aware that our nation's capital and the National Mall will be the center stage for presenting to the world the past, the present, and the future of the United States. Beyond Granite will be a critical catalyst for national dialogue and discourse. It will help us ensure our civic landscape reflects the vibrancy of our nation while reminding us the story of the United States is not fully written and that we must make way for the stories of accomplishment, sacrifice, and wonder yet to be told and yet to come. Thank you all for joining us on this journey. Thank you to our artists, and it is my pleasure to welcome a dear friend, important partner to the National Park Service, and a leader in the Beyond Granite effort, President and CEO of the Trust for the National Mall, Catherine Townsend.
Thank you, Jeff. Welcome, everyone. And to everyone at the National Mall and Memorial Parks Division, the Trust is honored to work with you day in and day out, always, as your philanthropic partner, or preserve and enrich the National Mall to ensure it's a vibrant and inclusive treasured space for all. We're especially thrilled that Beyond Granite will be an integral part of that work over the next year, and we hope beyond. I want to thank everyone in the room for joining us, and thank you all of you who joined the live stream. I hope that's been fun, and I'm trying to, feel the love in the room. Thank you, Paul. We are feeling it. Mellon Foundation President Elizabeth Alexander has focused on this question. What can we do to create a commemorative landscape that speaks to the complexity of our history, educates us to better understand our collective past, and reflects the rich multiplicity of the American story? These words really resonate. And we believe Beyond Granite program is a start to achieving this. We are extraordinarily grateful to the Mellon Foundation for their vision and support of this important new program. And I'd like to recognize Tatiana Evans, who's here with us today, Program Assistant to Elizabeth Alexander. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your incredible support. The National Mall is the commemorative landscape that offers a constant but also evolving landscape upon which we tell the American story. Beyond Granite will catalyze a more representative process to more fully reflect the American people, their perspectives, and their experiences. And it's an opportunity to break from traditional commemoration, as we've heard. As our Park Service partners emphasized in its foundation document, the National Mall is more than a collection of monuments and memorials. It is a collection of stories that define who we are as a nation. Let me repeat that. Define who we are as a nation. So this is really exciting work we're going to be doing. The Beyond Granite program and the collection of stories represented will help do just that. And we'll be the first, I'm quoting Teresa Durkin, who's our lead on this program, will be the first organized group art show in the park's history and beyond the mall too. Oops, I'm stuck here. I want to thank Marcella Costa and the National Capital Planning Commission for inviting us to partner with them on this important program. The Trust values partners as key to our success and our impact. We are always pleased to be a lead convener of partners and voices to protect and enrich the National Mall as America's civic stage. So we are so honored to join with you and all the other partners on this fabulous project. And also Monument Lab, of course. And with Paul and Salamisha, Monument Lab has been a part of the larger national movement to expand the dialogue and commemoration. And we are very, very fortunate to have them as our curators and collaborators on this program. And thank you for the wonderful facilitation of the artists' questions today. We are also so grateful to have Justice and Sustainability Associates here with us, who will carry out meaningful public outreach to ensure the program resonates with people not just on the National Mall, but across the district. Thank you to Elizabeth Morton for her support of the program, and a special thank you to Suzanne Furstenberg, who's here with us today, whose In America Remember art installation recently demonstrated the extraordinary power of commemorative exhibition on the National Mall. And thank you to the artists we just heard from today. A heartfelt congratulations and thank you. We look forward to watching your visions unfold over the next year and for what is to come. What better time than now, and what better way than Beyond Granite to express our shared history and hope for the future through the eyes of these new sets of artists who will inspire us, move us, and connect us. I definitely feel the energy and love in the room today, so thank you. And a few things I just heard and I just thought I would share, just from everybody's comments today, I just thought they were so powerful. I just thought I would just quickly share. I'm touched, and it really resonates with the work we're trying to do. It's an intersect with other people. I felt seen. For immigrants to have a chance to be on the National Mall, it's an engage and connect with new audiences. Get my breath back and honor others, their breath. Monument can be a song. Public memory with reckoning. Your own history is part of a collective history. Really, wow. What Americanism is. Amplify the purpose of the National Mall. Really, really incredible words and just energy in this room. We just love it. So just thank you for this is what this program is about. And we celebrate all of you. Wendy, Tiffany, Ashawn, Vanessa, Paul, and Derek. Thank you for joining us on this journey. It's going to be incredible. So what is created through Beyond Granite in the coming year, we hope will reach across time and generations and bring new meaning to what the National Mall represents. I'd like to end my remarks by emphasizing that Beyond Granite cannot be a one-time exhibition. We must work together to make this an annual program for years to come, especially as we're leading up to America's 250th in 2026. This program and the important stories and voices it shares must continue annually and be a part of this national celebration. Thank you so much for being a part of the launch today and helping us promote the importance of a commemorative landscape that tells the full American story. So this concludes our program, and from everyone here and at the Trust for the National Mall, we wish you a happy holiday season.